All right, welcome back to Cardboard. We're here with the gang again, and this time around, we're gonna show 3 cards each that define us as collectors. I know for me, it was kind of a tough decision, a lot of thinking about which ones would make it, which ones wouldn't. So I'm really interested to see where all these guys went and which cards they chose to showcase. So with that, I'm gonna toss it over to Drew to get us started. What you got, youngin?
All right, so my first one is one from my buddy Lee, which is the Flawless Minshew patch auto. But it was kind of cool because Lee was my buddy who he actually passed away a month ago. So having that card was really cool for the collection to have something, because he was like such a staple in our community and all the people that it was really cool to have something from him. So that's like a card that I'm going to cherish forever. That's one of my main, it's awesome. It's one of my Minshew PCs, but it's also really cool to have that like memorial. Then this is a card I know someone here might like. This was my first trade, my first and only trade I made on Twitter. It was for a Chrome Yao Ming 9.5. So I made that trade. The trade value on this thing was $80 at the time. And I think it's worth a few dollars more. And Zebra, any of the animal prints on Select is absolutely nuts. So that was something that was really cool. It was my first, it was like probably my second or third interaction on Twitter. I made this trade or something like that. It was really cool I traded with Travis out in California. And then my last 2 cards it's 2 cards. It's the same card kind of, but it's the Fanimations, Bird and Jordan, and Bird solo. So these cards are really cool. I bought them strictly for my Bird PC. I wanted to do the whole set in PSA 10s, but like they're super low pop. I think the Bird's like in pop 83, and I think the Jordan and Bird are like pop 280 or something like that. Something really, really low. So these were like 2 really cool cards that had like the 90s vibe that I really liked that. And I thought they were really cool. So that was really cool to have the Larry Bird aspect from 90s and like a PC thing.
Those cards are awesome. I totally remember those.
Yeah, and they're like super common, but no one grades them, and now they're like an impossible grade because no one kept them in good condition. It's
what year is that in?
92. And it's an absurd set. There's this, there's a Malone, Mutombo, and then a Jordan solo that I should have bought when it was like $75 because those go for a lot now. But those are cool.
That's great.
I guess I will popcorn Tyler.
Sweet. Okay. So same thing. I didn't pull out the MJ because it's played out by now already. But what I wanted to do, same thing, small stories, quick stories. First, Jordan, Kinetics, Ionics, Kinetics. So right before the big last ride, Jordan push, I went into the card shop and bought that. And I guess it just kind of symbolizes what the hobby has become since the start of the pandemic. I believe that my hobbying has changed since last March. And so this is kind of part of my collecting story, where this was the first card I bought post-COVID. So that one. This one, it is a tie-dye Pharoh Cooper out of Select. I numbered out of 25. And so cool thing about Pharoh is we went to the same church. And so I got like real big on collecting Pharoh, and Twitter got really behind me because Pharoh was super cheap. And so they would just send me tons and tons and tons of Pharoh autos and jersey cards. And it really helped me develop a lot of relationships on Twitter through Pharoh Cooper. So part of my story. And then last, this is the very first card I ever bought for myself. It's Andrew Jones, Joker's Wild, 5-card stud, yellow case, just like So Cooley. I bought it for $20 at a flea market in Columbia, South Carolina. And so it is it's been the staple of my Andrew Jones collection. And as you know, I probably have the biggest Andrew Jones collection in the world. So that's it. Let's see, who is below? Chaz is below me on my screen. So I'll toss it to Chaz.
Thank you, Team Murph. So like everybody said, this is really hard just to pick 3 cards. I couldn't, and a few cards are played out like Murph said too. So but the first one I got it. Oh, hold on, I got to do this. So it's the Clyde Drexler X rookie card star. So when I was a kid, like I found this at a garage sale, and I knew it was worth like $50. But at like when I was a kid, this was my most expensive card that I had, and I would have done crazy things for it. But I thought I hit it big when I got this. So that's the Blazers one. The second part is the older era knows, but Shaq obviously he was huge. So when he hit, like that's when the 90s wax kind of went away. So I got this one. I remember when I was a kid, I had to get the gold, everything. So, and this one's signed now too, but that Shaq was just, man, he was huge in 92. Like that was, I remember going searching for packs, trying to get Shaq rookie cards. That really set me off. And then the third, I finally got this recently, but this was like a dream card when I was a kid. So Jermaine O'Neal, if you guys know, he's just one of those random guys that when I first started graphing, he was always cool. I've talked to Mooch about this, but like I was like 13 and he was 17. So it was just like talking to a dude and like, dude, you're in the NBA. This is crazy. So I started collecting Jermaine O'Neal, and ever since then, but this is like one of the most expensive Jermaine O'Neal cards you can get. But this one, I had to get it. That's what I got for you.
That's a Metal Universe
PMG. PMG, yes sir.
That is sick. That is sick.
Let's go with the Twins.
I have a quick story to tell about that Shaq. Yeah. I actually, same era as a collector. That card when it was out it was the elite card. It was Jordan's rookie card and then the Shaq Gold at the time. If you were a basketball collector, I pulled that card in a card shop at a Tacoma Tigers AAA baseball game. They had a little card shop in the stadium, and I pulled it in there. And me and my friend were screaming, and all of a sudden, we had like a group of like 20 kids around us, and everyone was running around. They pulled a Shaq Gold. It was like one of my top hobby moments of all time. It was like to pull a Shaq Gold in public, in a public place like that. It's just crazy.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
That was before Twitter, when you could share it with everybody just with a snap of a finger. we were like celebrities for like 3 hours at that game.
That reminds me, because of that story, my first of my 3, and you've all seen it, everybody's mother has seen it. I try and post this thing all the time because I still can't believe I have it. Similar story to you. We were at a trade night and at our local card shop, and yeah, you're going to be a better view of it. But it's from 1415 Immaculate. And when I pulled it, it was basically like, I didn't know I could scream this loud. Like, I mean, Justin and I, we have ADD. We get excited quickly about things, like we're very all over the place. But this was like, we pulled this, we went nuts.
Okay, this is the card that we're looking at right here. Steph Curry! Oh my God! Oh! Oh! Did it, man! Yes! That is really cool. Oh my. Here, I got it. Oh my God.
And so that moment we started yelling, and they at the time, the card shop was like kind of split into 2. It was like the card shop and then like Magic and everything, and like literally everybody from both shops just like crowded around us. Like it was just like everyone was going nuts.
He was on the floor, he was screaming. Yeah. It was absolutely wild. One of the craziest, most vivid memories. And it's like at that point, like that moment, we're like, wow, this hobby is really, really amazing, and these cards are so cool.
It's crazy, and I look at it, it's just one of those things you look at, you can't believe you have it because there's no way you could buy it. So,
but didn't you sell that at one point and then reobtain it?
I did, yeah. It was a rough story. I was thought I could really use the money, and because at the time didn't really realize how rare it was. And I was like, oh, I could just, I can get something comparable. I can get something very similar and have a bunch of money left over. And it was one of those things. I sold it, and then like within a week, I immediately, like, I think the next day I called the shop owner, I was like, hey, I made a big mistake. Like, don't ever sell that. I'm coming back. And like 2 weeks later, I bought it back. So it was, and the shop owner was super nice. And it was one of those things. I walked in there with the money, which was the price he sold it to me for, which was great. And I walked in there with the money, and I just like, slammed it down, grabbed the card, and was like, just that moment. It almost kind of took that for me to really, it's like, you don't realize what you have until it's gone. As soon as it was gone, I was like, I messed up here. We gotta get this back. So that's why this card is one. If I, I have kids in the future, who knows what happens? I gotta sell some cards. This one will never leave me no matter what. So it's a super, super fun card, and I love it. The next one is this one. So this one is a Skyline. This is one of my favorite Curry rookie autos because it's a graded 8 too, which is kind of fun because it's not trimmed. A lot of these out of the pack where I think there's like out of 99, there's like 7 that have been confirmed trimmed. And it's crazy because they just were notoriously not in good shape. So it's one of those cards, it's old enough and you're like, okay, I actually like that it's an 8 because it's just peace of mind. But it's the only one I've ever seen where he put the 30 on his autograph right there. You'll find, and guys like me who are lunatics about this stuff, you find as many examples as you can. I never seen another one with the 30, so when I saw it, I had to jump on it. And it's kind of the epitome of my collection. So when I started, the way this card defines me as a collector is I never really focused on buying cards that were good grades or in good shape. It was kind of like a checklist. I was like, okay, let me find all of Curry's best rookies, what are his best autos, and then we'll just start checking them off the list. We'll get them no matter what shape they're in, as long as they're good. And but the one thing I always look for in every card that I buy was like a 10 auto. I wanted one that was just like a perfect auto, nice, big, bold, not going off the card. If it was a great deal, but the auto was off the card, I don't want it. It's like, I don't care if it's 1 of 5. And it's like, I was very picky. I'm not as picky now, but all of my rookie cards, all the big ones that I have now they all just, they may not be, I have a lot of 8-5s, a lot of 9s in my collection, but the autographs are all 10s. So that's just kind of one that defines me. It's a very beautiful card, and another one that I'd never let go. And then the third one is interesting. I was going back and forth between the Harrison Ford one I recently got and then this one, but it had to come down to this one, hence the background here. So this is Alex Honnold, and one of the best, if not the best rock climbers. It's hard to hear. Let's turn the light here.
What I do is shooting pool.
Yeah, right. He's climbing up. So that is the in Zion National Park, the main climb there, and Moonlight Buttress is what it's called. It's a very crazy climb, and he's climbing without ropes. And he actually climbed Half Dome without ropes as well as El Capitan. And this thing's like 4,000 feet. So climbing that without a rope it's otherworldly athletic achievements. And so I got this one TTM, and it says Ryan, go big, Alex Honnold. And he actually signed it in a ballpoint pen. So it's kind of like, it's interesting because, he probably hasn't signed a lot of autos. So it's just like signing in a ballpoint pen. It's just super Alex, if you know the guy. It's so it's one of my favorites. I got it encased, and it's the inscription on there. Just, it means a lot to a guy like me. So it's a super fun card, and just from a guy that is, if you haven't seen his movie, he has a movie called Free Solo. And Free Solo is one of the most inspirational films I've ever seen, and it's magnificent. So you should check it out, and you'll want to buy his auto. Like 20 minutes in, you're going to be wanting to buy like 10 autos. It's great. So those are my 3. I'll pass it on to Justin here.
All right. So I'm wearing my Arizona shirt today to go with my first card here. This card is super awesome. This is a 2015 Topps Museum Collection Yu Darvish 101. If you've been following me for a while, you know what this card is. This is my first ever pack pulled 101, which also turns out to be the first card I ever graded. And Ryan and I, we were in college at Arizona, obviously, and we were so convinced that we're going to buy cards. We actually didn't Uber to it, and it was about a 25-minute walk and about 104. And by the time we got there, I was so sweaty and this and that. The shop owner goes, "Oh my gosh, where did you guys come from?" He throws us a bottle of water, and it's like, give me a mini box of museum collection, because we just saved on the Uber. And this one was hiding in there. And needless to say, I lost my mind. It was like, oh my gosh, 101s do exist. And so this card is very, very special to me. And like Ryan said, this one I'll never leave. Next card, also one that I pulled, and JB, I know you'll like this. This is a Venusaur base set holo. When I really got back into Pokemon, I thought it'd be fun to open a base set pack, and so I went on to David Adams, and if you know what they're worth now, hold on to your chair, because I paid $40 for the pack. And yeah, and I opened it, and then this was inside, and this is really what kind of kicked off my Venusaur collection that I have now. and enjoy so much. So to be able to pull one of these, and I don't think I ever opened one of these as a kid. So I was 21 years old at the time, and it was just like, oh my gosh, feel like a kid again. And again, one that I'll never leave. Very, very cool. 10 centering too, which is really hard on these base set cards. So
to date that was 4 years, because we're 25 now. So he says 21 like it was 10 years ago. It was 4 years.
That was 4 years ago, but still, very, very cool.
Way back when you were 21.
Exactly. Yeah. And lastly, I'll build it up here a little bit. You guys know I'm Derek Carr's biggest fan. Nobody believes in Derek Carr more than me. And
Dave, though? Biggest Dave,
Derek Carr more than me.
I say that every weekend. And Derek Carr is the guy who got me into collecting. When he started collecting Steph, I was like, okay, the Raiders just drafted Derek Carr. I'm going to collect Derek Carr. And so once you start learning about the cards in this, you learn about the Grail, the NTRPA. And so that became my chase card. And in September of 2018, I was able to secure one of them, which is shocking considering how many Vegas Dave owns. But this was one that, I would put 5% of my paycheck every week away for this. And I saved for this for so long. And this was one of those packages where you're like, okay, it's here. I can breathe. It is $73.99. Training camp is actually right next to our house, or was now not anymore since they moved to Vegas, but getting to go and see DC every year and stuff like that was really cool. And I'm just a big fan of his and happy to have that card in my collection.
Yeah, it's crazy. I don't know if you guys know, but the Raiders would practice at at a middle school out here in Napa, of all places. Like, as a middle school, they have a great facility, and it's like we could walk to this school from our parents' house, and it was like you could go and watch and literally meet all the players and stuff, like Dante Culpepper, like back in the day. You're like meeting all those guys and having a great time, and it was like nobody was there. And now, once Derek Carr got on the team, people started to get a little more crowded and stuff, and it was some great memories going to those camps, just like in our hometown, like less than a half mile away. It's crazy.
I'm also excited to have one because I know Vegas Dave owns like 60 of them or something crazy. And so to actually see one or have one is much more rare, right? I guess.
That's so nuts. I still can't believe he went so hard on David Carr.
Yeah. He has, out of his cracked ice is numbered out of 22. I think he has, for one of the sets, he has 17 of one of them. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how you get like that bigger. He owns the majority on Derek Carr, which could be a good thing for me in my future if Derek Carr does go off, because I've got a lot of Derek Carr. That's like T Murph said about Andrew Jones. I've got a 5,000 count box just dedicated to Derek Carr and all of his stuff. So hopefully one of these days they get to the playoffs.
Yeah. I'm a Raiders fan, so I hope.
Hey, thanks for letting me ramble too.
Oh, you're good, man. But now you have to pass the baton.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I want to see So Cooley.
All right. So I picked, for what I chose, I decided to go with the three individuals that you guys have seen me talking about the most recently. So my first up is the Skylar Diggins horizontal RPA 5. She is the reason that I started watching women's basketball. I gravitated toward women's college basketball at my undergrad university because I was really good friends with a lot of the females that played on our basketball team. And by watching them, I started watching, more D1 schools, and I gravitated toward her game, and she's the reason that I became a WNBA fan. So growing my collection of hers, finally securing the limited logos recently. I wish I had that in hand, but this is probably my favorite RPA of hers that isn't the limited logos. I just think it's a great design. And so that's the first one.
Hold on. So cool. You gravitated towards her game? Is that what you said? That's
her game.
Okay.
Her game.
Did you get that card on Twitter recently? Did you find it on Twitter or somewhere else?
What's that? The limited logos?
Yeah.
I actually found it through my LCS sent me a Facebook post where someone had posted it, because I don't have Facebook. And they had sent me a Facebook post of someone that got it, which was actually someone that I follow on Instagram.
Okay.
So I contacted that individual on Instagram, and about 2 hours later, the deal was done.
Perfect.
So
I'm glad you finally got that.
Yeah,
That was awesome to see.
Awesome the way it worked out. And then the fact that it ended up being jersey number was just awesome. So
Perfect.
yeah, finger. So it was great. The next one is Jimmy Butler Optic Nebula 1 of 1. It's actually the only Nebula of Jimmy Butler to surface in his Heat uniform. So that's pretty cool. You guys know that I recently started grabbing Jimmy Butler stuff only in his Heat uniform. After that playoff run, I've always been a fan of him. I mean, he plays the game the right way. And after that finals run last year, what he did just made me, I was like, you know what, I'm going to start. And I think that he is just grossly underappreciated. And so just watching him play, watching him lead the Heat this year, I mean, he proved last year wasn't a fluke. So he's just a lot of fun to watch. And that's probably one of my favorite cards of his. And the fact that I was able to secure his only Nebula to surface in his Heat uniform is pretty cool. And then the last one, I don't think this is going to surprise anybody. Nick Claxton, Nebula 101, Prism 9.5.
Disgusting.
Anybody who followed me for any time knows that I went pretty hard in on Claxton last year when he was tearing up the G League before his shoulder injury, and it seems to have paid off. So the kid can play, and having that card is pretty cool. So that was the first actually Nebula that I've ever owned of any player. So the fact that it was him, and then the way that he's playing now, it was pretty cool to be able to secure that one for my collection. So those are the three that I decided to go with.
Mr. Nebula over there. Holy smokes.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, Edwards
to the moon
now.
Huh.
Yeah, right. I'll throw it to you, Matt. Go ahead.
All right. Well, I was going to say, you definitely got to find some of that Big Face Coffee merch soon, dude. You got to get a shirt.
Oh, absolutely.
You got to get a shirt or something.
Yeah,
all right. Well, honestly, I've struggled with this. I'm not even going to lie. Since we've been talking, I've actually made a shuffle because you guys were making fun of the Jordan rookie and being too basic. So honestly, as a kid, that was my dream card. I'm just going to refrain from showing that. Push that aside. So I've made a move. First off, this is not the one I changed. Rasheed Wallace, Fleer Metal, rookie card, PSA 10. This is like, I guess, proof to a lot of people that it's not about value necessarily, but I do just like slab cards, even PC cards. Rasheed Wallace is not going to the moon. He's not probably going to the Hall of Fame, but he's probably my all-time favorite player. I pretty much, for a lot of people that know me really well, I was a lot like Rasheed Wallace. I pretty much modeled my basketball game after him, and I was a little bit of a hothead, and yeah, but I always felt like if I got into it or something with somebody, it just made me play harder. And there's actually like stats that, like, after Rasheed Wallace got a technical foul, he actually played more efficiently. So I feel like I was always that type of guy too. Like, people really wanted to get into it, then it just made the game more interesting. So I've always been a fan of Rasheed, loved him. And then I think about a year ago or so, I started collecting him as like a true PC. So I think a lot of that stuff is still kind of at my parents' house from my childhood collection, but I've definitely gained a ton of it in my short period of collecting. And Fleer Metal has always been a favorite of mine, especially the Universe stuff. My second pick probably won't be kind of a huge surprise. I have a huge Flawless kind of addiction.
Yeah.
Huge Flawless PC.
Ooh, that's what on Twitter.
I've been collecting Flawless since its first year. That's right when I started getting back into collecting, and I do love their patch autos. I think honestly the patch autos, I'll briefly flash this one. This is the best card design ever. However, this card is more special to me just because it's a Sonics KD. And, for those of you, most of you guys know, I used to work for the Sonics all the way to the bitter end of them moving to Oklahoma City. I always tell people I was the violinist on the Sonics Titanic, and we got 1 year with Kevin in Seattle, and I've really I fell in love with him in Seattle and followed his career ever since, and I'll always be a fan of him. The only time I didn't root for him was in the playoffs back when he was in OKC. That's when I had to pump the brakes a little bit, not let them get a championship. But once they were eliminated, it was all back to love. They got dangerously close a couple times too. Let's be honest. And my second card is the one I actually subbed out for the Jordan. I was going to show a Jordan rookie, but instead I'm going to show a card that I actually pulled myself. And I'm proud of this for a couple of reasons. One, for not selling it ever. I'm selling it too early, but it's a blue Luka. I pulled this myself. This was my first box of Hobby Prism in 2018. I have a huge Luka Doncic man crush, and at that time it was probably at its peak. So when Prism came out, I was literally just buying the stuff up like anybody else at Target for $20 a box. Like anytime I could find it, I would just pick it up and I would stash his base. But I finally went to the local card shop, bought a box of Hobby. I think it was $280 at the time, which I remember even being like, wow, that's kind of a lot. It's kind of a lot. I can go buy a bunch of little blasters or whatever at Target. But instead, I went for it, bought the Hobby box, brought it home, ripped it open, pulled the Luka blue. I was freaking so pumped just because it was the blue one and it looked so cool. Like, it's just the best looking version of that card, I think.
Color match.
And at the time, I remember looking it up and it being worth $400 and being absolutely thrilled that I had actually, not lost a ton of money, which I think a lot of us used to do when we would open wax. So I was thrilled that I just didn't take a huge hit. And then I graded it, sent it to myself. I mean, it's not a true gem or anything crazy. I'm just honestly thrilled that at 9.5. This card, honestly, I've been tempted to sell it several times. I sold way too many of my Lukas way too early. I had a lot of numbered parallel ones, but that was the one that I've held on to throughout it all, just because it was the one I pulled, and I just love that blue version so much. So it's one I plan to hold on to unless like I come into some crazy desperate measures or whatever, but I've held it this long and it keeps going up in value. So why not just continue to hold it?
That's smart.
I'm going to tag who hasn't even gone yet. JB hasn't gone.
I think JB and
Nick, JB, go ahead and take it.
All right, so I know we got a lot of basketball guys in here. I got back into the hobby through baseball. I'm a big Nats fan, as I'm sure many of you know at this point. And in late 2018, there were these two rookies that came up, Ronald Acuna Jr. and Juan Soto. And I had a buddy who's in my fantasy baseball league that I commissioned, and he just keeps talking about baseball cards. And I'm like, dude, like, what are you talking about? Like, I really didn't even know this was all going on in the background, like had no clue. And so he gets me into it and we dive in head first, start ripping 2018 update. And I'm just like pulling Soto, Acuna. I mean, they had tons of inserts and base cards and whatever. And so then as I'm starting to get like more acquainted with everything, there's two cards that I really wanted. I learned about what Bowman first were, and I realized that was the first ever Soto card. And then there was this other card, the Acuna Bat Down, that was in Series 2, like the series before I got into it. So I still found like some Series 2 blasters, but apparently it's a very hard card to pull out of blasters. So I kind of set my sights on these two cards, right? This rare Soto Bowman first, because he only had an auto, because like really no one had heard of him. Victor Robles was supposed to be the big prospect, and then this Bat Down. So I've been working since starting in the hobby to acquire both of those cards. And so this is kind of like a little tag team here of here's the Acuna 10 Bat Down, and then the Soto Bowman first autograph, which I just acquired.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's the recently acquired one, right?
Yeah, man. And, you know, you talk about the Steph Curry, like selling it and feeling bad. I mean, I sold a lot of stuff that I pulled of Soto or that I acquired a variety of different ways. And I sold a lot of it to acquire this card. And like, even still, like I got the card that I like was my grail, right? And I like still sometimes when I think about it, I'm like, man, that red auto out of 70 or like just these cards that I pulled. But yeah, so but it's awesome, man. Like these were the two cards when I started back in the hobby, and this whole thing really started to turn into a thing for me. My buddy, I was lucky enough, you know, he's a big grader. He's teaching me all about grading baseball, buying on release, getting it out there, being the first one to get it back, put me in a position financially to be able to acquire these cards without having to spend really out of pocket money. That is like the cards that I really wanted. So I kind of turn the cards, you know, this bulk amount that I get, and then I turn it into the cards that I want. So, you know, necessary evil for me sometimes. And then my last card, not to go down like a sad story, but my grandfather passed away late last year, and it was in the hospital all year. And with the pandemic, couldn't go to see him or anything in the hospital. He loves art. And his entire house is like very rare art, from sculptures to paintings and what have you. And we're a Jewish family, and he always growing up always talked about Sandy Koufax. Sandy Koufax was like his thing. And so while he was in the hospital, I wrote him this letter just about what Project 2020 was, and I sent him the Ermsey Sandy Koufax. I never got to talk to him about it. He was like kind of losing, you know, his marbles a little bit, just being cooped up, you know, just he was old. And so, yeah. So like when he passed, I was like, you know, what are you going to do with this, to my grandmother? And she's like, why don't you take it back and just have it, and it's yours. And so very important piece of my collection is like my last thing with my grandfather, and just a cool little story. As he lost his hearing and really wasn't able to talk too much. And if you ever go to like my channel doesn't upload anything new. But the cover photo on my Just Another Card Show channel was actually my grandfather watching me open cards. It reminded him of when he was younger, and like we couldn't communicate because he couldn't hear anymore. But so he would turn the subtitles on and then like watch me and my buddies just open cards, and he would just sit there. And my grandma sent me a photo of him like leg crossed, big screen TV, just watching me open cards. And that's like his last memory of like anything he did with me was like watching me open cards. So this thing is like kind of like the embodiment of that entire story of like kind of the end of my relationship with my grandfather, which is pretty cool that it like found its way into cards. As I'm sure you guys notice, stuff always ends up winding up there in our lives, which is pretty cool. So yeah, so this is my third piece.
Love it. Awesome.
Yeah, very cool.
Right out.
All right.
Me? My last?
Dizzle, yeah. Now
All right.
let me see some of these.
You know what it is.
There's a couple.
You know what it is.
We know what it is. So actually, going through this, all of our topics for tonight, this one to me, like it was like the most thought provoking, because like there's a couple different routes you can go. You can grab the most expensive, the coolest, the best stories, etc. But I wanted to grab cards that like kind of focused on attributes that I enjoy from this hobby. This to me is 100% an escape from work. Corporate gig, like I grind it out every single day. So when I come down to the man cave at 9 o'clock every night, like this is my release. And so the things that matter to me with inside of this space, the first one I think is reflection of who I am as a person. And that's super deep, but it's commitment and persistence. So I super collect Aaron Donald. This is his 2014 Topps Chrome red auto, numbered out of 5, super tough pull. Like if anybody ripped 14 Chrome, like if you got 3 numbered cards in the case, you did well. So they were a super tough pull, but so that's a rainbow that I've yet to complete from his rookie year. I think it is a friendly reminder why I collect them, and kind of the stuff that I enjoy, primarily the chase. I would say like once I finish a rainbow, not as excited as I thought I would be. It's more so like when I've got that last one to go get, like finally hunting it down, and then it's just like yes, but then it comes in the mail. It's like shit. Now what? So I think that's a good embodiment of that one. The next one is my ability to change as a collector within inside of this hobby. And so this is one of the big ones. There's his 2014 Black Finite 101 auto. Arguably his biggest card from 14. In NT, he didn't have an RPA. It was a sticker vertical auto because at the time he was a defensive lineman and not drafted in the top 10. So that one to me, 2014 Prism when it came out, everybody hated Prism. Like it was Topps Chrome, ride or die. That's it. And I didn't buy any of them at all. But over the years, probably through basketball, Prism became cool and kind of now became the staple. And I don't know if that's when the license split or what, but the perception of Prism for football is different now than it was 8 years ago. And so this one, another buddy of mine who collected a ton of Donald stuff, he said, hey, you know what? I'm going to start moving all my cards and start buying game use memorabilia. And he's like, I really want to get a Donald jersey. He's like, do you want to buy some of my bigger things? And I was like, hell yeah. I was like, what do you got? So I had a mail day that had that finite, the base finite, his Bowman Chrome Superfractor, his Contenders Super Bowl ticket. And it was just like, but Prism in itself is a kind of a reflection of like changing within the hobby for me. And then the last one is I think passion for the hobby, and then memories for the hobby, and then how we connect cards to things, moments, etc. I mean, like tonight is a perfect example of that. If we can pluck like a very, very finite moment of time out because of a singular card. And so the next one is a 2018 Noir Kobe auto. This one to me, as a Laker fan, there's obviously an emotional attachment to Kobe, to one where it's abnormally weird. I didn't know I could have a connection to a human that I've never met before as strong as that one. But the cool thing about this card is that the day after my daughter was born, I drove down to the LCS and I was like, I'm a splurge, just had my first kid. Let's do this. I was like, give me a case of Noir. And so at the time, like Noir was like only, I don't know, $380. Like it was still an expensive case. And so I'm ripping this thing in the shop and like everybody's around me like, oh, I've never seen this stuff ripped before, blah, 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 blah. I get skunked, like the worst case ever. And I'm a degenerate gambler to somewhat of a fault. And I'm like, you got one more box of those? And he's like, yeah. I was like, all right, give me that. So grab this box and I pull a Kobe auto. And to pull my favorite basketball player on my kind of rip fest to celebrate my first kid being born, out of the Kobe autos I have, this is the one that means the most, and it sure as hell ain't going anywhere.
That's awesome, dude. That's awesome. All right,
dude, I feel that, man. I just got like the Soto card, which is like the card that I've been waiting to get like since I got back into the hobby, and like it was so exciting to get it, like to like pay for it and like know like it's coming.
Yeah.
And now it's here, and like people tag me in Soto stuff now, and I'm like, I don't know. Am I still like, what am I doing? Like, I feel lost. Like I was working for this like thing for so long, and then I got it, and now I'm kind of just like,
what do you do?
Yeah, I'm like wandering around now. Like I don't know.
Yeah, your cardboard.
Yeah, I'm like lost, man.
$100 Sotos don't move the needle anymore. Like, no. And it's crazy because it's not about value. It's about like this rank ladder of like coolness, grailness, etc. Like remove the money aspect out of it completely, and you're just like, I got this one, like the rest of them.
Yeah, and that's like what I've been doing, going like down like these obscure rabbit holes of like Topps Now cards that I've never seen of his, or like random things that I just like. I have no direction. I'm just like, and I'm buying like all raw stuff. Like someone tags me in like a Soto flagship 10. I'm like, I don't want that. I was collecting that like 3 years ago. Garbage, right? And that's what like everybody wants. But it's just like, it is so interesting, man. Like how when you accomplish something in this, you just get kind of lost with what's next. And
what's the bigger beast to attack next? You know, what's the next one? That's how it goes for me. I feel like I always stash, like I always do a good job of like stashing. Like if it gets to a certain box, I'm probably not going to sell it. And then like I just I try to keep things away from myself. Like the longer I can keep things away from these little gritty mitts, I can actually keep them and sustain them. And so I just hide stuff from myself, basically. But I mean, honestly, this has been a great session, guys. Thank you guys all for kind of sharing your top threes. I think it was super interesting to learn, a little bit more about you guys as collectors, and I certainly enjoyed it. I hope you guys did too.
Yeah, man. Thanks for setting this up.
All right.